Hey, Chris, Liege Games. You've been waiting for it. Everyone else has already put it out. We're going to be talking my best of 2021. Now, this is going to be different because I've got a couple different situations here. I'm going to have my best of 2021 releases. That's what this video is. If you're interested in my best of new to me games of 2021, not from this year, that's a separate video. So, we'll talk about that later. But 10 games, my best releases of 2021. At least I hope they're all 2021 releases. I hope I didn't. And what is this list going to mainly emphasize the most is accessibility. I imagine other people's lists. I don't watch other people's lists, so I don't have a clue what other people put on their list. But I imagine you have these games that are sprawling, 3-4 hour games that just have this much overhead. And you know what? There's something to be said about accessibility nowadays. Getting a game to the table. It doesn't matter how good a game is if you can't get it played. I'm in that comment and I don't like that comment, but I'll say it anyway out loud. What got released in 2021 that I said, okay, I'm happy to have this in my collection. I'm happy to keep this. I'm happy to play this. Because, again, this list is going to be significantly different than a lot of other people's lists. I'm a minor reviewer. I'm a minor channel. And, I have different tastes than other people. I am out there. But there are going to be some similarities too. So, let's talk about that for a minute. 2021 in review. Number 10. I love me some real-time games. This is Cuphead. It's not the best game that you will play. But you know what it is? It's freaking fun. Real-time, dice rolling, sometimes dexterity management with a pseudo-campaign. And so, it shouldn't work. 20 seconds seems like a long time when you're rolling dice, right? If I told you to go roll dice for 20 seconds, you'd probably look at me like, oh yeah, I can roll it. Now, if I told you had to get them in a certain order and you only had a limited amount of time to do it, and you're going to lose if you can't because you only have 3 lives to do it, it gets a little bit different. Now, if I add challenges like stacking the dice on top of each other or rearranging the symbols of not to mean what they originally mean, then you're starting to get the drift. And this is a game that can be played with anybody. The difficulty is high, just like the original, and so it stays true from that. Is it for everybody? No. If you hate real time, this is not going to appeal to you. If you don't like dice rolling, skip this one. But if you want something that's unlike anything else I've played, that's why it's number 10. Number 9. Hub Games. Hub Games now, this tiny publisher, has made my list 2 years in a row. 2 years running. And this one is going to fly under the radar. A lot of people haven't played this, but routinely, the ones that I have seen play it all really enjoy it. And that is Kombo Klash. I did a review on it early last year. And it should not be as good as it is. It, again, should not work the way it works. But the combination, and again, hear me out on this, because the sum of the parts is much greater than the individual parts in this game. You have these animal tiles, and this has probably, for a small box, the best production value of almost any of these games on this list. At least in relative speak. This mat, fitting in this box. This is not a big box, folks. They didn't give you a lot of space, and that needs to be said nowadays, because that also is way overlooked. All you're doing is placing down these tiles, right? You're putting them down, making combos, picking them back up, flipping them face over, face down. There's a little bit of memory component. But it's a game that with these, I believe, 6 different types of animals, it can make you feel very clever by getting a very strong combo and outmaneuvering your opponents. And it's fast. This is a race game, essentially, of who can combo 2 or 3 more points every turn than the other person. It's not like, well, I'm going to make a 20 combo and I'm going to make a 4 and then, you're going to make another 20. No, I mean, you have to be really good at this and think about it because it's a little bit different spatially as well. It accomplishes what it set out to do with flying colors. I mean that as, this very colorful game in the first place, and the fact that you've got both of these, color tiles as well, exemplifying the colors. So It's a game that if you were looking for something small and filler-wise, I can't really recommend highly enough. If you like the tile laying, slight memory-esque, because you have to remember which one got flipped face down so that I can maneuver the right one or flip over the right one when I'm creating my own combo next to it later. If you don't like that, well, that's why we have different tastes. This is another one that's sort of flown under the radar at number 8, and this is a game called Ausonia. This is a deck builder of a different ilk, if you will. This was a small Kickstarter, and it reminded me very much of Splendor, with the gem allocations on the cards and the resources. At the same time, it is much deeper than Splendor. It also has a solo mode as a deck builder-esque game. Now, the biggest problem with it is the rules are terrible. So learning the game was the biggest challenge. I learned it solo. I played it solo. And so if you're looking for a solo deck builder that is difficult as well, definitely check out this. The problem is, again, it's not widely available. It's not floating out there in the secondary market. I haven't really seen any of the big channels cover it, except for you, Jeremy Howard, because I know you were looking for a copy of this for a long time. And if Jeremy Howard is super interested in this and wants to buy a copy, folks, I mean, we're talking about some serious leverage power here, right? Must be pretty decent. So it was a big surprise to me because when I got it, I sort of watched half of Rado's playthrough and was kind of like, oh, that sounds cool. It works. It's one that if I had a better grasp on the rules, I would love to get out more frequently because I am a big fan of deck builders overall. And this is doing things in a slightly different manner. But the jargon is just a little bit too off. The rule book is like someone only half did it. It's like they were more worried. As you can see, this is not, again, a very big box. This box, as great as it is, all like the Burgle Brothers size of things, extremely tightly packed in here. So size is great, but it's like they tried to do the same thing with the rule book. The cover just fell, in case you didn't hear that. And that's the biggest problem. Now, 2 expansions as well. I mean, this is a self-contained game with plenty of stuff with these 2 expansions on top of things, offering different modularity. So, again, if you are a fan of deck builders, highly recommend that you watch some gameplay of this to see if you'll like it. That's why it's number 8. Number 7. This is significant because, one, again, I like putting my money where my mouth is, and sometimes it actually pays off. Number 7, Let's Make a Bus Route, the dice game. I saw this early 2020 go on sale from Sashi and Sashi. And they were, for the first time ever, opening a web store that you could just order from and get shipped over to the US. So I did it. It was an expensive game. I mean, again, this is not a big game. Combo Clash, same size pretty much. So very tiny game. And it's a roll and write that's a dice game. And if you didn't see it, many of you didn't, Let's Make a Bus Route I did a review for at the beginning of my channel. And the biggest criticism with Let's Make a Bus Route as a roll and write was there's 1 map. Now, the new edition that they just put out in the last year or 2 has 2 maps, which solves the biggest issue I had with it in general, is that it's kind of the samey. And so I don't want to play it again and again. Now, this, as a dice game, utilizes the same sort of roll and writes, but also an I cut, you choose sort of mechanism with the dice, where I roll all the dice, I choose the 3 I want, then here are 3 that you're left with that you have to then choose from on how you want to use them. And then goes back and forth. The biggest problem with this game is it's only 2-player. You can play solo or you can play 2 people, but it does not play at 3 or 4, which is why I have not gotten rid of the original Let's Make a Bus Route yet. But I'm highly tempted to, because there's supposed to be a wooden version of the roll and write coming out maybe sometime in 2022-ish. I don't know. And if it addresses the issue of the differences or giving different play each time, besides just the tiny amount of objective cards that vary, I could see myself getting rid of the other Let's Make a Bus Route behind me on the shelf and just keeping this one. Because I was also able to teach my 13-year-old niece how to play this, and she loved it too. It's thinky, but it's not that thinky. It gives you meaningful choices, but it is, again, it's about 10-15 minutes to play. And the coolest thing about this box, and I would love to see more people utilize this. So here's the box top. Here's the top. This is felt in here. So you just roll all of the dice into the box top. Again, amazing. Is it a little expensive for what it is? Absolutely. But that's the price with some of these Japanese games because you're not going to be able to get it elsewhere. I don't see anyone picking this up on the US distribution production side of things, although I wish they would. Because again, I think a game like this, if it had wider reach, people would be spouting it just as much as they do with things like Fleet the Dice Game or Coffee Java, whatever that one is, the dice game. You know what I'm talking about. But that's how highly this game is, or should be thought of. 6. This was a surprise. This one came out of nowhere. It was one of those where they said, hey, you want to review this? And I was like, sure. Kind of looks appealing. You know what? If it doesn't, it'll end on the trade table. You know, and as reviewers, I think we've all had those. You know, if you ask anybody who makes these videos, I'm sure they've all kind of done those. Because occasionally, why you do those in the first place is this stands out. And that's land versus sea. You know? This, again, one I did a review on, I would be very happy never to play Carcassonne again and just play this. I think that strongly of this, because you can play it just the base mode, and there are also 2 little modular expansions that you can include. But the key point on this is the modular expansions, again, are included on the tiles already. So you don't even have to worry about, okay, I got to add something, I got to take something out. No. These tiles are double-sided, and they have iconography all over them. All over them on both sides. And so it's just, okay, which iconography are we going to use this time? Are we going to use them all? Are we going to use these ones? Which ones do you want to do? The biggest problem with it is you make these areas of, well, appreciably, obviously, title mentioned, land and sea. And so calculating some of those when they're massive are difficult. And the game even cautions you in the rulebook to say, hey, you might not want to make too big of an area because you might not be able to close it off. And invariably, you ignore the game's advice, and you end up losing by the amount of points that if you would have just closed that off a little bit earlier, you could have won. But again, the overhead on this one is so simple, and my wife loved it, and it just works. It just works. It's straightforward. It's offering you tile placement on every single time, because look at this. I mean, even the different sides are different, so you're allowed to choose which side you want. There is a little bit of take that with one of these symbols where you can steal one of the other people's tiles, but you already also have solved the Carcassonne problem without having to house rule it, because on your turn, you will have 2 tiles that you will already have looked at and looked at both sides of them, and so you already have a good sense of what you're playing, so it removes the analysis paralysis or the I need to figure out what I'm doing on my turn and the downtime then that happens with that. Takes care of it. Beautifully. Even. So, that's why it's number 6. Oh, did I mention, just like with Let's Make a Bus Route, the scoring is included right here on the box, so you can just track it right in here. Again, low overhead. Cannot be understated with too many of the other massive, over-deluxified, crowdfunding side of things that are out there nowadays. I'll say it. I don't need metal coins with everything. Now, any other year, I've only done one of these before. Any other year, this one would have been higher. This one would have been higher if it wasn't for the other games really in front of it. Because the other games in front of it are like all times for me. But that's why Uprising, Curse of the Last Emperor is only at number 5. This 4X, very difficult co-op, very difficult, is pretty amazing in its scope and its reach. Now, it's not for everybody. It's a mess of mechanics and 4X usages and phases and turns and remembering rules and putting guys out and dice rolling for battling, which completely goes sideways all the time. And it's just not going to work for a lot of people. But again, it is unlike anything you have in your collection. I guarantee it. The production is top notch, which again doesn't influence the gameplay, but it's just a nice icing on top of the cake in the first place. The biggest downside is it just is a long game, because I really think you have to play it at a higher player count, and I think you need to play it the full 4 rounds to get the full experience, to get the win rate of 20% or so. And it does it in a way that we haven't seen before. On the 4X side of things, but on the combination of the mechanisms that they're utilizing in terms of building your armies, going up against 2 separate factions that you have to outpoint. Not just you, but every single person that's playing has to outpoint both of them in order for you to win. And again, it's going to be horribly frustrating and difficult to get to the table, but it's an enjoyable experience at the end, even if you lose. Because it also prompts the, well, if I would have done that, if that would have gone our way here. And that's often when you find yourself thinking about a game like that, what makes you want to play it again. So that's why. Number 5. Number 4, I don't have to go very far for. Sitting right here. AEG, Flat Out Games, Cascadia, number 4. Again, at the beginning of the year, when I first reviewed this, I told people on my review, you can go back, check the timestamps on that video. I said, this is going to be on a lot of people's top 10 videos at the end of 2021. And guess what? Liege was right. It's also on my top 10. I told you then on that video as well, it was going to be on mine. So no BS. You know, sometimes it's just that easy to tell. As another tile laying placement game, it just works. Now, again, the issue of Flat Out Games and that the comparisons are out there. Well, Calico and, you know, their more recent one, Verdant. Do you need all of them? Probably not, no. But this is my ilk because it has family mode. It has solo mode. It has, I can play this with anyone mode. That's just the general mode. And you know what? The common theme has been across all of those plays. Everybody loves it. There is nuance. There is thought behind it. But again, it does it in a very, very accessible package. And this has it in spades. Hearts, clubs, and diamonds too, if you will. I'm a dad pun. I have to get at least 1 or 2 in per video. Otherwise my quota is not met and they don't pay me for it on YouTube. But I mean, I like the bag mechanism of pulling the animal tokens out to match with the tiles. It works. Oh, don't like them all. Scrap them all. Oh, can't have the hawks next to each other. Oh, gotta have the bears in sets of 2 this time instead of sets of 4. There's enough variability that never the same game, even within the same game. And you don't need to pay $60, $80, $100 for it in the first place. There's something to be said of that. Again, don't need to be over deluxeified. Seeing a trend so far in these games, like a lot of the games that are still in shrink are great games, but if you can't get them to the table, there you go. Now, number 3, again, any other year, he said it again. What's this guy made of? Any other time, this game would have probably been the top 2. But this is where I'm basically splitting hairs of a hair. And again, when I played this, I said, people are going to love this game. This is going to be freaking amazing for people. People are going to be excited about this. And this is going to be, I think, on a lot of people's 2022 lists when they get their copy. And what game is that? That is Vagrantsong. This is a dungeon crawl unlike anything I've played. And it's amazing. Again, it's just like with Uprising, it's not going to appeal to everyone. The dice rolling, the utilization of some of those mechanics of moving around, people just aren't going to like it. But it does something unique. You know, if you hear my crowdfunding videos all the time, when I talk about the crowdfunding games, the worker placements, the deck builders, the, you know, dungeon crawls, whatever, you know, using this example, one of the first questions I always ask if you're going into one of those saturated markets is, well, why should I get your game over somebody else's? What makes your game worth getting and making it hit the table over somebody else's? And I'll tell you right now, the spin of this as a non-fighting game, trying to convert the ghosts via your vagrant abilities back to their more peaceful spirit selves, is refreshing. The board mechanics are different as you're on a train, every single one, but the bosses, how they vary between one side and the other, their happy side and their mad side, and how they differently act, very much so, is something I have not seen or seen as well duplicated anywhere else. And again, it's a campaignish game. So that's the biggest barrier. So that's the trouble, because you are keeping some of your skills over from game to game. Again, ease of accessibility in terms of the dungeon crawl side of things. I mean, that's why the pre-orders are essentially still all sold out. Because everyone watched my review and said, I gotta get this game. No, Tom Vassel's review came out like a day or two before mine, because I was slow to publish it. I sat on it, unfortunately, for like a week. And no one would have looked at my review anyway. But it's that good. I agree with Tom Vassell. This is a great game. It has the Liege seal of something. I'll come up with a fancy award name. Everybody's got a fancy award, right? Shut Up and Sit Down's got the pear, the seal of approval or excellence. Quackalope does he do a duck or something? I don't know. Board Game Code does 5 out of 5s. I'll come up with something fancy, right? I gotta have something fancy. Maybe that's something for Patreon backers. I'll let them pick out whatever it is, and I'll let them vote on it or something. I don't know. Whatever. Let's go on to number 2. Number 2. Again, it's right back here. Don't have to go very far to find number 2. In fact, I can see the expansion for number 2 right behind the camera. Boom! Shakalaka. Number 2, Bullet. I love this game. I have Orange sitting right over there. I haven't played Orange yet. I need to get this Orange played. That was a weird sentence. The why I haven't played it more? My wife hates it. She hates it. She hates it. Hates it. Hates it. She will not play it with me. I love it though. It's not going anywhere. It's probably a top 10 game for me all time. I love the real-time mechanism. I love the pressure that puts. Even in the 2 minutes, it's enough, but it's not too much either. And I love some of the uniqueness of how the characters themselves manipulate the little bullets or tiles on the boards in the first place. It has a solo mode, it has a cooperative mode, but the best one of all of them is the head-to-head. And passing that huge stack of tiles, or tokens, I guess you can say, over to the next person. Nothing more satisfying than that, to say, ha ha, here you go. But, I mean, it's freaking fantastic. And this is one of the few times where somehow, thankfully, in my foresight, I got the deluxe version on Kickstarter when they funded it. Because normally, if you know me anything on this channel, I don't do deluxe. So, yeah. I really lucked out. And people are paying top dollar for the deluxe because the wooden tokens are absolutely fantastic. Fantastic for this. One of the very few times I'm very, very happy with it from that. And it's not going anywhere. And Orange is there. Just another reminder that I need to go pre-order Star. So, although I kind of wish Star wasn't going to be a standalone, but it's more like Orange's size. But whatever. You know, it is what it is. Hey, but that's why it's number 2. I am absolutely in love with this game. And that's saying something. If my wife won't play it with me, that's one of the things that I often say is, in terms of whether or not it's going to stay in my collection, if I can actually get it played, like I said earlier, I'm going to get this one played regardless, and I don't care what she thinks of it. Boom. Number 2. Number 1 here, I actually have to go back behind the camera. For some reason, it's over there. Well, you'll know why it's over there in a minute. So, this, in case you couldn't tell, my Marvel United. This is number 1 for me. Because very similar to Cascadia. And now you can see here, if you're paying very close attention, I do not have all the expansions. I got rid of some of the expansions because I just didn't think they were worth it. Now, if I'm very careful and I don't let the Infinity Gauntlet fall off the table here, or the tower, this is a fantastic game. People poo-pooed this when it was on crowdfunding because it was chibis. Again, superfluous plastic, no argument there. Overpriced for what it was, probably a little bit. Yeah, not going to argue that. My most played non-kids game of 2021, period. Still haven't played through it all. The villains make this game. The expansions make this game. The core game itself, won't even argue with you. Won't even argue. The core game itself, this is not a top game. But if you are lucky enough to have either the Infinity Gauntlet expansion I just showed, this expansion with the Sinister Six, But more importantly, this stretch goal, massive mother of a box, this has so much content in it. And the enemies are so different. I mean, that's the big criticism, right? The heroes are not terribly different. And they're addressing that with Marvel X-Men United, which I should have gotten the all-in on, and I cheaped out. I'll pick it up all in the secondary market. Anyway, the villains are just amazing, and how they're taking even just the simple mechanics that this uses and making it difficult. Again, it's completely random. You're shuffling your deck, and you're just not going to draw some of the cards you need at certain times, and you're going to choose a hero that's not right for the situation, but would have been perfect for a different enemy. And you know what? You can play it in 25 minutes and rinse and repeat if you want. You can play it solo, multi-handed very easily. It scales as well. Like I said, played it with my kids, played it with my game group. Everybody loves it. It works. And again, it's taking up a lot of space. I mean, 3 expansions or 2 expansions plus the core right here. It's not insignificant amount of space. But you know what? It gets played. So the value is totally there for me. And I guarantee when X-Men comes, when I get my X-Men stuff, it's going to get played a ton too. And so it just fits on all levels of my chaotic randomness that I love the tactical nature of, with a little bit of the Marvel IP and just the enjoyment and fun factor that hasn't really been as replicated in many other cooperative games that I've seen, combined with the low overhead of learning it, the difficulty that can be ramped up, and the fact that it's just, again, it's got the it factor, the fun factor that all of these top 3 games especially have. That no matter what I do with them, when I play them, who I play them with, it has it in terms of, man, this is fun. This is awesome. This is why I get into the hobby. This is why I enjoy it so much. So, there you go. That is my top 10. My crazy Liege top 10. Stay tuned, though, because the next one of these will be my top 10 new to me of 2021. And that also has some good games in it. I don't know why. I don't know. Just out of nowhere. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, the next one will be that. And some very interesting games, some very, very good games on that one too. Because if nothing else, 2021 allowed me to do was play some games that I had not played before. Games that I either found overrated, underrated, or, about right. Whelmed, if you will. Ever heard that? People, I was overwhelmed. I was underwhelmed. I was just whelmed. That's all I got. Got a little end ramble there before the sign off. So stay classy. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. Those are my 10. And I'm sticking to it. I got nothing else. I got to put all these back now. Gosh, that's the biggest problem with not just pulling it up on the screen. I got to put these back where they go now. And that's annoying because, as you've noticed behind me, I don't really have an organization system. I just, shove them in there wherever they fit and put them on the shelf. And I should probably get some organization like that. But then it wouldn't make the shelf videos that I'm doing nearly as fun. This is my clearly aesthetically pleasing shelf that doesn't get played and I only use it for production purposes. I'm not saying you see those in videos, but I think about that when I watch other people's videos sometimes. This is lit up to make it look like the perfect background. And we display the case and the cover in this certain manner. Like it should be on Home and Garden or something, one of those shows. Little displays. I don't know, I'm rambling now. I got nothing else. But it does what it accomplishes